Yes, hello. This is Bob Frank. I'd like to welcome everybody to our webinar today. So we'd like to thank everybody for coming today. We'd like to stay on track here. We've got a lot of information to cover in a short period of time, but we'd like to again welcome you for taking time out of your busy day to join us for a topic that I believe is of significant interest in today's contact center environment, and that is to transform yesterday's IVR into tomorrow's customer experience platform. So my name is Bob Frank. I'm a sales director for US markets for CallView. And I'd like to briefly at this time introduce Jay Minucci, the president of Service Agility. Jay, if you could say hello.
Thanks, Bob. Hi.
And we would like to go forward here through some PowerPoint slides and through some content that we certainly hope, and it's our intention to provide you with some great information to help you achieve your vision and seek out your initiatives to help maximize or optimize the customer experience for your company, and to give you some ideas for the future for some things that you can do to get that to be the highest it possibly can. I'd like to just briefly go through our agenda. So today we're going to discuss in our webinar the customer experience paradox, today's consumer, IVR design downfalls, the strategy for the future, and we're going to leave time at the end for summarization and some questions. You should have the facility at the bottom of your screen to enter questions. We do have the audience muted at this point, but you'll be able to ask questions at any time. And when we get to the bottom of the 30 minutes, we're going to open that up to questions for Jay. So again, thank you so much for attending. And let's go forward with some of the prelude to Jay Minucci's presentation here today. One of the unique things I think about this audience and about everybody that's joined this webinar is that we are all providers of customer service, but we're also consumers of customer service. So we all play a role in experiencing what's out there in terms of having to contact our personal and professional providers to reach customer service when we need it. So what is it that customers want? They want 24/7 service. They want service when they need it, when they have an issue, when they need a resolution. And they like that to be a very fast resolution. They like to be able to find out what the answers are that they need to proceed as quickly as possible. Also, consumers, and I'm sure we all experience this, really do not have much patience for wait time or waiting in long queues when they call for customer service. They actually would prefer to have self-service in many cases, and self-service as it's available from our providers really needs to be intuitive. It needs to be simple, it needs to be easy to use, and they need to be able to get to it quickly. We also like to have our services personalized. So we like to have suggestions from our providers as to what the best product or the best services that we can possibly be utilizing from their company. And also, and very importantly, if we need to have access to a live agent, we need to be able to get to an agent seamlessly and quickly to get the additional help that we might need. On the other hand, we also all work in customer service, and what do we want? What does the enterprise want? Well, the enterprise also wants fast resolution. And as you all know, in the contact center KPIs, first call resolution is very, very important, and a KPI that's often tracked and tried to be improved upon. We also like to have a reduction of call volume, in particular the call volume that's going to our agents. We would prefer to have our customers be able to solve the simpler problems on their own and only have to seek out an agent for the more complex, time-consuming problems that the agent can help them with. We also would like to increase digital engagement. Again, this is a smooth channel to help customers get self-service quickly. And it is also the mindset of people today to try to go on their smartphones or on the web to try to get answers without having to make that phone call. We also would like to have targeted services. We would like to have the ability to retain our customers, but in addition to that, to cross-sell and upsell product is needed. And positive customer experience, high NPS score, and high customer satisfaction ratings. So the answer should be simple. It should be to go digital. If you look at the digital transformation paradox today, companies invest millions of dollars in digital channels. As you can see from this pie chart, 25% of an enterprise's investment is going into digital enablement today to provide their customers with better customer service. However, there's a paradox, and the investment is not necessarily achieving its goals because today, 64% of the volume of interactions in a contact center is over the voice channel. So as we move forward now into the content of the webinar that Jay is going to present, I'd like to introduce Jay to you. I'd like to give you a little bit of his background. Jay is the president and founder of Service Agility, a consulting company dedicated to improving customer service and call center operations. In this role, Jay provides a strategic and tactical guidance across all industries for enterprises that seek to optimize customer interactions. In addition to his consulting work, Jay is on the editorial board, writes articles for the Contact Center Pipeline and publication. He has contributed to a variety of other journals, studies, and books, and has taught a number of classes on call center management. And he's a featured speaker at many industry conferences today. Before becoming a consultant, Jay spent 17 years running mission-critical, award-winning call center operations. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Jay Minucci and have Jay take it from here. And I will see you again when we get to the question and answers at the bottom of the half.
All right, thanks a lot, Bob. Appreciate it. And I also appreciate the setup, because I'm going to just pick up right from where you left there. You were talking about how voice is still, you know, the majority channel in a lot of our centers. You were showing 64%. I know that's true in some cases. I know a lot of the clients I have, you know, we see 95% sometimes in voice. So we know that it's still big now. It will be at least in the near future and probably going forward. So if the mission of our centers is, hey, we got to deliver a great customer experience, well, then we have to realize that we've got to meet the customer at that channel. That's the voice channel. And we know it's the IVR that fronts that voice channel, right? So I put together here this brief history of the IVR. This is the customer perspective of it, because I think it's really important for us to define, you know, what a great customer experience is. We've got to start with, well, what's the customer expecting, really? And to a great extent, their expectation is driven by their past history in calling contact centers, not just yours, but contact centers in general. So I kind of view our IVR in 4 stages here in the contact center. That first being, I've termed this the good old days, right? And those of you that have been around as long as I can actually remember this, you know, there wasn't an IVR, right? We just called a company and, you know, the call got through, it went to a rep, they were wonderful. And I asked, you know, what's my account balance? And they could answer it, right? Which was fine for a while, but obviously taking millions and millions of account balance calls, it doesn't take long for somebody to say, hey, you know, isn't there some kind of better way to do this, right? So our better way was we developed this box called an IVR, right? And if you ask those people running contact centers, they'll tell you how successful it was because of so many transactions that got processed there. But we're not looking from that perspective. We're looking at the customer's perspective, right? So if you spoke to customers, they'd tell you, hey, this is the first time I had to interact with a computer, right? That's a really odd thing if you think about that now. But back then, and these were rolling out in the 80s, the early 90s, people didn't have home computers. Most people didn't work in IT. They weren't on a computer or computer terminal. Maybe they went to an ATM at their bank, but maybe not. They were just starting up at the same time. So this was really the first time that someone had to interact with a computer. And we did literally everything wrong from a user experience perspective, right? Really poorly designed menus, self-service applications that weren't intuitive, et cetera. So I call that the dark ages, right? And you don't have to look very far to see evidence of the fact that customers didn't appreciate IVR during those years. And so we felt, hey, the answer here is, get people away from having to go through all these menus and press all these buttons. Let people talk to the IVR, right? So now, for the first time in somebody's life, now they have to talk to a computer, right? So in the IVR world, we blazed some paths here, right? We had people interacting with computers for the first time, talking to computers for the first time, and we pay the price for it, right? Because it always winds up that, when you start something out, it's never perfect. Natural language wasn't. There's a lot of issues with it in terms of being able to understand people and keeping up with synonyms and all those types of things. And people got very frustrated. Now, I will say there are some good voice-enabled systems out there today, but the vast majority hasn't worked the way that people wanted it to. And that kind of leads us to where we are today here, where we're talking about, hey, the IVR can do more. In this transformation into a more digital world, the IVR can really be a centerpiece there, a digitally integrated IVR. Now, I use the term enlightenment to describe it, right? So that's obviously the positive look on it. And we're just starting out here, so we'll leave it to history to decide what this really is, whether it's enlightenment or not. But what we're hoping to hear is customers saying, hey, I get to choose how I interact now. And even more importantly, I can move seamlessly from one channel to another. So when it makes sense to bring in something else, I can do that, or to change, I can do that. So that's our background. That's our past history. So if we look at today's contact center customer, right, they're just a byproduct of that history, where they're now a little averse to IVR systems. As much as it pains me to say that as a consultant that works on IVR systems, they are. People are a little bit skeptical of this thought that we're customer-centric when we're kind of forcing them into IVR systems. Although they are open to other channels because, they see that there are other advantages in some of those other channels. So that's what their contact center history puts them at. But that's not the only thing that sets their expectations. There's those other environmental factors, that they are much more tech savvy today, generally speaking, than customers have been in the past. We've got Alexa, Siri, Google, whatever, that we're getting used to talking to. And of course, people are become more app friendly. Most of us have a bunch of apps on our phone. We tend to be effective with them. There are certain ones that we use often, other ones not so much, right? But we are at least using them. So where does that leave us, right? So we've got customers that they've been burned in the past, and because of that, they're not entirely trusting when they're presented with the IVR, when they make that initial call. They don't quite know what's going to happen. But at the same time, these same customers believe in the power of technology. They're used to all these different channels. There's an expectation that, at least for simpler tasks, I can self-serve. And to me, most critical now is that we're all walking around with this powerful computing and voice device. I was in a meeting the other day. We had 10 people in the meeting, and I counted 16 phones out on the table, right? Because some people are carrying 2, and I guess some people are carrying 3, right? And think about it, that's not uncommon anymore, right? So you put this all together, and I kind of labeled this as, what's today's caller? Well, they're cautiously and selectively optimistic, right? So they see the potential that's out there, and they're willing to dive into that potential a little bit, but you have to prove it to them first before they can fully buy in. Okay, so that's our customer, right? So we think about that person that's now calling us, and the greeting that we get, the welcome mat that we roll out for our customers is our IVR. And of course, how happy they are with that all depends on our design. I'm going to go through 3 things that tends to be a downfall for our IVR systems. And the first one, and waiting for my screen to catch up with me here. Apologies for that. There we go. Our first one here is this thought of customer patience. And I speak to customers about this often. Every caller has a patience level, and it's never any better than when they first start the call. So that's when they first come in, that's when you get people that are willing to try different things, try self-service and authenticate themselves and give a bunch of details maybe on why they're calling. Maybe even wait for a rep patiently, well, at least at the start of the wait. If you're going to make them wait 10 or 15 minutes, and won't be very patient then. But this customer patience curve is incredibly important when you're designing IVR systems, and we seem to have completely forgotten this in the industry, right? So we get to this situation that by the time the customer's through the IVR, their patience is used up, right? So pity the self-service app that they go to, or worse yet, the agent that they go to that's now under the gun because they've had a really bad experience in the IVR, right? So I typically tell clients, when somebody comes in, you need to at least identify them, if not fully authenticate them, and find out why they're calling, ideally in 30 seconds. Most people can't do that, right? So if you're thinking of your IVR now, you're thinking, oh my gosh, we're not near that. So secondarily, at a minimum, 60 seconds, right? So try and get all that out of the way in 60 seconds, and you'll still have people up at the top of that patience curve. How often does it happen? Not very. I go a lot of places now where 2.5 minutes, 3.5 minutes just to get out of the IVR, really not all that unusual, unfortunately. Okay, another design flaw I want to go through. We know, I said before, our mission is really to deliver this great customer experience, right? I mean, we wouldn't do this otherwise, right? We just, might as well close up the contact center if we didn't want to deliver a great experience. So I think a lot of people, as they're designing their IVR, they understand the concept of maximizing satisfaction, right? And I put a few factors down there that'll do that. Being efficient, giving customers options. Hey, you can press this or you can say this, right? That helps. Providing advance notice, letting people know, hey, I'm going to give you your balance now, right? And then probably most importantly on this, having quick access to a rep, right? At any time during this call, press 0 and say operator and a rep will come on. So do we all do these things? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But at least in the design, we know that we could do these types of things, and we know that these things can deliver satisfaction. The thing that we don't do with IVRs, and so I spent a lot of time going through this, is looking at the dissatisfiers, right? Because the truth of the matter is, the practices that we have related to our IVRs often generate more dissatisfaction than they generate satisfaction, right? Think about it. When was the last time you had a conversation with somebody where they said, oh, I just called so-and-so company and I just loved the IVR, right? That just doesn't happen. They may say that about the rep, but you just don't hear it too often about the IVR, right? You're more likely going to hear the stories of dissatisfaction because we do things like ignoring customer input, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, I had a client not too long ago, would give a main menu. There's no 0 on there. If you press 0, what would happen? Repeat the main menu, right? So literally ignoring what I'm saying. Everyone knows if I press 0, I want an operator, you're ignoring what I'm saying. Making customers repeat themselves. See this a lot with natural language systems. You didn't understand what I said the first time, so I say it again. Still didn't understand it, so I say it again. Still don't understand it, right? And you can see the person just tumbling down that patience curve as that's going on. Assuming this is the first attempt, I'll talk about that on the next slide. And then my very favorite here, containing the call. I put containing in quotes. Containing is one of those phrases I want to eliminate from our lexicon in contact centers. I want to get butts and seats out of it. That's a terrible phrase. And I want to get containing the caller out of it. If it's your goal to contain somebody, then you're not really serving them. So the containment approach just doesn't work. But those are the things that really generate some of those dissatisfying factors in our IVR systems. So we have to think about those when we design. Last one I want to go through is that concept of context being in a vacuum. And it's interesting because, years ago, I think people would have been a little, I don't know if upset is the word, maybe uncomfortable if they called in and you knew that they were on their website or you knew that they were in a text chat before earlier in the day or something like that. People don't act that way now. The thought is, when I call you, you know what's going on with me, right? Did I just try another channel? Studies, and by the way, studies are all over the place on this. I've seen one that says 44%, before they picked up the phone, tried another channel. Pick whatever number you want. We know that a number of people do that. They try and get service elsewhere. A lot of people have an ongoing case, right? If you're an insurer and I've got a claim, hey, is the rep working on it available? Those are important things. Does the customer call about the same thing on a regular basis, right? If you look at their records and they only call for one thing time and time again, we shouldn't be ignoring those types of facts, right? And now, today, we appear out of touch when we do that. So our designs can't be thinking of this in terms of, hey, this contact exists in its own vacuum. Okay, so that's where we are with the customer. That's some of the design that they're running into. So let's make some fixes here. Let's talk about a strategy for the future, right? So what do we need to do? Talk about 4 steps here. First of all, we've got to make sure that all the channels are available. And I know most people are probably almost all the way there now, right? I mean, typically, you're adding 1 or 2 here or there, but we've got to make them available. But just as important, we have to make them easy to find and use. I worked with a client recently where when I typed in their name in a Google search bar, they didn't come up. I couldn't really find them in there. And those are the things we need to be doing. We need to be looking at this from the customer perspective and saying, okay, they have a need. What will they do, right? They may look for us on the web. They may call us. So we should be doing those things and figuring out what's happening. Third, make it easy to move between them, right? And that's the big one, right? That's talking about integrating all of this, right? So that I can move around, so that I'm on a voice call and we can do some collaboration, or I'm on the website and I can bring in a voice call and all those different types of things. And then the 4th step here is we're going to track all that. We're going to customize it to what our specific customers want, right? And eventually to what individual customers want. So those are 4 big steps to really promote this channel choice. I think most of us, like I said, have completed most of 1. I think maybe a lot of us are really kind of in that 2nd step right now, and maybe starting to dip our toe in that 3rd step, making it easy to move between them. And hopefully that's why you're on the call today, to talk through that and to look at a product that can help you do that. And while we're doing it, we continue to recognize the power of voice, right? It's still, for most of us, the most used channel today. It will be tomorrow too. Okay, so your customers have all these options. That's kind of a great thing, right? But makes your life really difficult, right? And you can see I put up, 6 different channels here, and I didn't even have room for email, so that should be on here too, right? but these are the different strengths that you have for some of these different channels. And as a customer, when I need to contact you, I certainly think of this, right? In my own way, however I view, the website and web chat and all, I think about this before I contact you. So, what I need to find out from you, how does it fit a certain channel? That's part of my decision making. But the other two factors in there is my perception of what you may have and how capable you are with it, right? If I have this perception that you're not technologically adept, I may not even go out and get your mobile app, right? Because I'll be thinking, hey, they may not have one. Even if they do, it may not do a lot, right? So the fit, the perception, and then finally, and probably most important, the preference, right? What do I like using? What do I go to? Am I somebody that, I just rather do something myself at a keyboard? That tells me one thing. If I'm a talker, that tells me something else. I'll do something else. I'll call out that last channel there, IVR and voice, because I use the term the go-to channel, right? Because it can do pretty much everything, right? So if I'm not sure, I can go voice. If I don't call this company a whole lot, I wouldn't even invest in, setting up an account on their website or downloading a mobile app or anything. I'm just going to find a phone number and call, right? So there's nothing good or bad about that, right? But we just need to know that, and we need to understand it, because that's what's behind some of those statistics saying, yeah, people are still picking up the phone and still will, because it is that go-to channel, right? So if it is, and we're fronting it with the IVR, we want to make that the best experience possible, right? So, a couple years ago, you start hearing about visual IVR, and you may have heard this term. You may have looked at some of these. Maybe you've even worked with a company, somebody that you call that uses this. But visual IVR allows you think of what that menu looks like, or what it sounds like now in your IVR, and you think about that on your phone, right? So that you can actually see what these applications are and easily select them. So two really compelling reasons to consider it, because it adds that visual component, which is so critical, right? And it's the thing that IVR systems don't have. It's what kind of holds us back a little bit, that you can't see things. And just as importantly, it's built on that backbone of some people would say tomorrow, I would say today, right? We're all just using our mobile phones constantly all the time, right? So that's, when I look at, new things that come down the pike, some of them, don't really capture my attention. Visual IVR does, for those couple of reasons, right? Adds that visual component built on that backbone, that thing we're all carrying around with us and probably looking at them right now, right? 4 advantages over traditional IVR: navigate it more quickly. You can get much higher authentication rates, and that's the door to everything, right? You want to talk about self-service or better routing, you've got to be able to authenticate people, right? You can now expand your self-service options because you have that visual element, right? You can do a little bit more maybe than what you did before when you were held back. And you get that greater depth of caller need for agent transfers, right? So I can get into what the person's looking for a little bit more. And that's huge. And it offers one of those things that people don't talk about enough. Everybody wants to get a really high self-service rate, and that's great. But what I like to point out to people is, look, if you can automate a 2-minute phone call, that's terrific. You just save 2 minutes. But if you can add all of this depth to a call when it gets transferred to a rep and make a 7-minute call, a 4-minute call, you just save 3 minutes. Right? That's even better. So those are some really big advantages there. You look at that and you say, okay, well, what might hold this back, right, from adoption? Well, first of all, is that mistaken belief that you have to have a mobile app and the customer has to use that app to get the feature, right? Now, you can, right? If you have a mobile app, you can build visual IVR into that, but you don't need to. Right? So you don't have to have that mobile app. You're not tied to, oh gosh, well, only 4% of our customers have downloaded the app, so why would we bother looking at visual IVR? You don't have to worry about that at all. Your population is the number of people that call you on the phone. Okay, so that's a belief that's out there, and one of the myths that we have to dispel. Now, not every visual IVR tool can do that, but some can. And there's also that thought of, hey, if I'm going to do this now, I got to rebuild the whole IVR system. No, you can just layer things right on top of it. So to close up here, we want to take action, right? So, and everybody's journey is different. We know that, right? And you may have already done some of these steps, but at a high level, what do we need to do? Well, let's start by creating that digital strategy, and let's not keep IVR out of it. IVR can be the quarterback here, right? So how can it fit into it? Okay. Secondly, which is apart from the IVR system, but I can't stop myself from saying it because I see so much difficulties with knowledge management systems. We need a single one. We need a good one. You've got to have the single source of truth. I'm not going to go any further in that because knowledge management systems is a webinar on its own right now, but it's critical for this. Third, let's view our services from that mobile perspective, right? We've all got the phones. Let's call. Let's pretend we're customers. Let's see what it feels like from the customer's perspective. And then last, let's get some early success, right? So if we look at some of those applications that we can drop in on top of what we have and start getting some success, it's going to be that much better. Okay, that's all we've got for a presentation. Wanted to open things up for Q&A. So Bob, I don't know if you're the Q&A master here, and if you've got the questions or not.
So yes, Jay. So we do have 3 questions that have come in. I'll just read those to you.
Okay.
The first question is, don't you think that people will be more open to natural language IVRs now that they are speaking to Alexa, Siri, and Google?
Okay. Yeah, I have to say Alexa quietly because it's sitting behind me. I don't want her to start talking, right? Yeah, it's a yes and no. So we've climbed that mountain of, hey, I feel uncomfortable talking to a machine, right? And not all of us have climbed it, but a lot of us have climbed that mountain now. So we've gotten past that, and that's a good thing. But keep in mind, when you're using Alexa and Siri and all, it's a choice that you make, and you think that it's a better way to get information. When you call a company and they present that natural language, that's not a choice that you made. And many customers feel like, wow, I wanted to talk to an agent, but you threw this natural language at me. So yeah, I think it helps, but I think you also have to think of it in context too. And it's not, people aren't just going to embrace it because they have an Alexa in their house.
Okay. Jay, the second question here is, what about voice biometrics? Won't that be a big part of the future of IVR? Yeah,
the jury's still out a little bit on that, right? I mean, it is being adopted somewhat. Didn't really talk through it here because it was just a little bit too detailed. I do think that that's an exciting part of IVR capabilities. I think right now it's limited to certain situations. And again, I think what holds it back is, again, that whole idea of investment. If I said to myself, I don't want to download an app, I probably don't want to make the investment of, creating a recording for a company to keep and then using my voice to, like, if I think I'm just going to call once or twice a year, it's probably not that important to me. And I probably don't want to do it. If I don't want to do it, it makes it tough for a contact center to put it into place. But in certain places, I think it is something, and it has been implemented, and I think it will stick in some of those places.
Okay. The third question is, and again, if anybody else has another question, please, please type that in and send that along. The third question I have is, we're still using touchtone for our IVR. Possible to still satisfy today's customer with such old technology? So
yeah, it actually is. So I'm not one, you know, I don't, like I said, I don't jump on every bandwagon, right? And every contact center is different. I think it has to be a pretty simple application, right? Probably more just a call routing type of application than a self-service type of application. But I don't necessarily view touch tone as a bad thing. It does depend on the application, and I think if you keep it lean, you can still satisfy customers with it. But if you really want to start talking about, oh, you know, I want to add self-service and all that, you know, it's not going to be the greatest transition. And you may want to, instead of doing that, start thinking about some things like visual IVR, which I know you're going to talk a little bit about, Bob, because I think that may be a better route to go then. So you could keep that and then kind of add a visual element to it.
Okay. Are there any other questions before we come into the home stretch here? Okay. You can still fire those along as I just give you a little bit of information about CallView before we adjourn. At CallView, we are committed, dedicated. It is our mission to make digital happen in the customer contact center. And we offer 3 solution components to help you increase the use of digital and self-service, as well as collaboration in the contact center. We have visual IVR, which is the first component. And before I cover visual IVR, let me just say that, you know, our solutions really layer into your present infrastructure. So including your IVR, we work with your present IVR. We utilize the gateways that connect to your back-end systems that are already in place. We utilize web services that are already in place. So we are actually a layer within your current IT and telephony infrastructure for the contact center. Visual IVR, Visual IVR increases the self-service opportunities for your customers by offering a visual digital experience instead of working through slow and complex IVR menus. If you think about it, everybody is walking around with a beautiful screen in their pockets that they get out and they use for finding out information. And they use that oftentimes to place that phone call, because either the website, it's not convenient to access that website, or they haven't downloaded the mobile app, perhaps they never will, but you can offer them that digital visual experience just by them simply placing that phone call to your contact center. Another solution that we offer to the customer is an opportunity to collaborate with an agent if they need assistance. So with collaboration, the agent can share screens and content with the customer to facilitate the completion of an interaction, and an opportunity for your business to cross-sell and upsell, or to complete an onboarding process. And again, first call resolution is, you know, one of the important KPIs of your contact center. And if someone is working through a visual IVR process and they're working through a self-service opportunity, you have to give them a lifeline to get to an agent if they need help. And when that call is delivered to the agent can then collaborate with the customer by sharing screens and sharing content and helping them complete that interaction. The third solution component is our ability to help you expand your digital capabilities. So we offer tools that can very easily assist you in creating digital forms out of what might be manual forms today, and offer those as a digital opportunity for your customers, either through visual IVR or on your website, or for any other channel in which you might want to expand your digital reach to the customers. And also we offer a very sophisticated analytics and survey package on the back end. It helps you to understand the performance of these other components. It helps you understand the trends. It helps you understand where people's journeys are taking them, and helps you understand where you need to fine-tune the system to, again, continually keep it easy and intuitive for your customer to get the service they need from your company. So we would certainly look forward to an opportunity to tell you more about these three components, to talk more about your contact center, your issues, what you're trying to accomplish, to see if we can be of assistance in helping you improve not only the customer experience, but also to improve operational efficiencies. So that really kind of completes our webinar here today. I really appreciate everybody coming on board. For more information, this is my contact information here, as well as Jay's. You can feel free to contact us if you would like to get more information from us, or if you would like to see a demonstration or an overview of our digital enablement solutions. Please contact me or contact Jay if you have industry Q&A, or if you have seeking more advice about the strategic plan for your contact center. And also to let you know that the webinar recording will be available at our website here. So this is where you would need to go. Feel free to download the recording and to share that with your colleagues as you wish. So again, I'd like to thank you for attending our webinar today. We hope we gave you some great ideas going forward and possibly raised a few additional questions. We would look forward to the opportunity to follow up with you to help you answer those questions and get more information as you need it. So again, this is Bob Frank. Thank you, Jay, for your contribution, and thanks everybody for joining.
Yep, thanks.